again, when we cut out the antenna, you want to make sure when you cut these two pieces out that it's facing this way in the way that it stretches. You want the antenna not to stretch up and down, but sideways when you sew it. It'll just make your life a whole lot easier. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that out. With fabric, if you don't know, there's usually the edge of the fabric that's not any good. So make sure when you're cutting your pieces out, they're not right on the edge, because it's called the salvage. It's not the super great part. So I'm just going to cut my piece out. I'm wasting a whole bunch. I don't usually do that, but it's just easier on camera to cut out from a small piece as opposed to bring it right up to my face to cut it out. You could also keep your black scrap, because we are going to need it. Just cutting, I didn't make a pattern for it because it's super hard just to do that. You're just going to need a strip of black that we're going to sew on 3 little strips, and they'll be super skinny. And you want to make sure with those that we're going to cut the lines this way. You just don't want to cut it too thin that you don't pull it apart. But we'll get to that later. So you've got your 2 antenna pieces. I'm just going to cut along the side. There we go. Alright, I got my 2 antenna pieces. They stretch this way. And how this is going to work, we're just going to fold that over, sew those edges up, and then we're going to put the pipe cleaner down the center of it, and that's how you make your antenna. Alright, let's start now by working on the antenna, because we'll need to have those done when you start putting together his head. So what you're going to need is 1 pipe cleaner, fold it in half. The top part here is going to be the tip of his antenna, and you just twist it till you get down. So this is obviously much longer than you're going to need it, but by twisting it up, it'll make it pretty sturdy, and this will be the tip of your antenna, like that. You can probably cut this, and then we'll probably use this piece for like one of his thumbs or something. So you've got your 1 antenna piece. Grab one of these. For these ones, I don't really like the fuzzy. It's hard to tell with here, but there's the same thing. There's the whatever side you like for your antenna. I would have that one facing out, and then kind of wrap it around. Hoping you can see this, because black on black is kind of hard to see. Let's adjust my lights. Black on black is kind of hard to see, but and then you're just rolling it up. Take your thread, I always get a piece longer than I'm going to need, and I double my thread up like this. I get a nice long piece. Get a needle. Here, let's see. Oh, I haven't opened this yet, so hopefully it will open. Technical difficulties. Oh, there's this little stupid plastic piece right there that's preventing me from... Let me get that up. I don't need that. What are you doing? Get out of here. There. Oh, well. That seemed pointless. Okay, so let's see. What needle do I probably want? A semi-longish one. Just because they're a little easier to work with. Nope, those are too short. Here we go. There's some here. Now, if you have a threader, there's a lot of different ways to thread online, but I always just it's usually pretty easy. Then you get your needle to the center, grab the two ends of your thread, and this creates the knot for you to start as well. And I just find it easier. You don't want your string too long, or else it tangles and makes knots, and it's just a pain to pull through. So I just do a couple knots here. And try to get them all in the same. There. And now your string is a knot there, and your thread is through there. And I'm just going to start, see if I can get this to focus. There we go. All right. So you kind of want to tuck in your end, and just so you hide the knot, I'm just going to put this on the inside through it. So now my needle's on the outside. I'm going to tuck in my corners. Just kind of like rolling in the edges here. It's easier to sew around your antenna than trying to sew this together and then putting your antenna on it. And a good trick to do this is called the ladder stitch. And you just go, you bring your string, let's see, let me get this out of the way. Hoping I can get this to focus here. Hold on a second, I'll be right back. All right, I realized it was really hard to see what I was doing on Zim's antenna, so I'm just gonna kind of show what I was doing with a different color. So I was tucking in the pieces here. I was starting with my string going through here and then coming back around, and it's a ladder because it's like you're going up and or down depending on which direction you're sewing, a ladder. So it goes across and down. This is a thick one. And then you're going back over and down. And then when you pull, it kind of really pulls those tight together. And this would be a skinnier piece. So this is just kind of showing you the stitch I was using for his antennas, or I'm going to use for his antennas. Go back this way, pull through. And if you have a skinnier piece or you kind of pull it out, you can kind of see it, tug it right together. Like that, on a really skinny piece like this. On a normal piece, if you're doing that type of stitch, is what you would use really to like sew poles on something that's already been sewed. It's a really useful little stitch. Because you just go over, and it really kind of tucks in the edges for you. Let's see if I can get a really good one on the camera here. So I'm on this side, I go over like the ring of a ladder, and then I go down the ladder side with my needle just a little bit, pull through, tighten it up, and then keep going. I'm going to go back across to make the next ladder piece, down, and pull. And as you pull, it really kind of pulls those together. And with a bright colored one like this, I would probably use like a pink string. I don't know, did I use pink string on them? You can use all black for your stitches, or you can use whatever color kind of matches. This is basically just how the antennas work to make these. It's really hard to see black on black. There you go, that's what it looks like. Okay, I'm hoping that is a little bit better. Let's see if we can do this. So you've got your ends here. You string in one side, you bring it across and you go down the side, all on one side of the fabric, and you pull it through. So just be careful, you don't want to wrap it around. And it should want this over the edge. Pull it through. Now, when you go, then you're going to go back across to the other side. Go down your fabric here. Oh, careful of those knots. You can kind of see it's coming through there. Yeah, and you'll slowly just start. If you get a little bump or piece, you can always just go back and add another stitch. So I'm going to go through and sew this one down. I might speed this up or see if I can't go through this here. You don't really want to sew along the edge, but a little bit behind the edge. And the nice thing about fleece is that it really blends together, and you're not really going to see a lot of your bumps and your lines that you would, say, with some of the other fabrics where you would clearly see where the seam is. And if you found that your piece is too large, you can always trim it so you're just sewing along. I've got a little bit of extra here. I could probably make this tighter by just making this a little skinnier. Now we've reached the end, so we've sewed up. Let's see if I can focus on this. Oh, maybe it's hard to focus because it's all black. So we've sewed up the side. To do a knot to finish it off, I just bring my needle back through like I'm going to do another knot. Pull most of the way forward, and then I have this loop here, and I'll bring my needle back through the loop, and I'll try to do that in that same spot a couple times. If you very gently pull it. If you want, you can even go back through that same loop again. Just make sure you're not pulling it too much to create a loose knot. As you do about 3 times. And then we're going to be putting this inside of his head, and then you can see if you want to have where your seam is be the front, or if you want to make it the back of your antenna, you just flip that around, and now your seam is along the back, and you won't really see it, and you'll have this nice little antenna that bends and is posable. If you are making a lady Irkin or your own custom one, you can just customize it. You can also you can pull this down because you're not sewing it to the pipe cleaner, just around it, and you can have a longer tip if you want, or if you want this curled however way you want. I usually keep it a little shorter, just because you can pull it back up. We're just going to shimmy. There we go. It's easier to pull down than to pull back up, so make sure you can always start a little short and then pull it down. So that's my zoom antenna. And then I'm not going to need this for right now, so I'm just going to, usually I'd hide the string, but where this is going to be inside of his head, so you don't really need to. So I'm just going to get a little tail. Got it, and then I'm going to go ahead and do the other antenna. This is plenty of string, so I'm just going to tie another knot and use this string again. I have a nice little knot there. All right, let's get this other antenna going. Fold it in half. Twist it. I want to make sure I've got the same length. Tip. Oh, piece of plastic. Find out what side I want that on. My black fleece is pretty much the same on both sides. Actually, and some of them are like that. When you pull your antenna, make sure it stretches this way and not as much that way. You want it to stretch like that. You start from the inside first and hide your knot. Alright, now you have your two antennae. I'll scooch that one up a little bit. There we go. Just so that, oops, too much. If you know exactly where you want it, you can kind of sew it to there. But there we go. There's my two zoom antennas. Ready for his little zimmy head. So now we gotta figure out where we want this antenna. The easiest thing to do is if you kind of just push your antennas through. So that's why I use the tops. Also because it doesn't poke you. Over here. And let's see, where do I want to put these? I usually put them right along the seam. It kind of hides some of my seam. So just gonna wiggle it down. I made really tiny stitches this time, but I should be able to kind of wiggle my thing. If you can't, if you're worried about breaking your stitches, because you don't want to break it, because then it'll just come apart. What you can do, let's see if you know exactly where you want them. You can make a little hole. Let's do that. I'm gonna put it right there. So you just put a little hole. This is really tiny. Really make sure that's where you want it so you don't ruin it. And you just want a little, the tiniest hole, or maybe even weaken the fleece a little bit so you can jam that in there. Did I get a hole? Nope, I did not. So you just want a little tiny hole so you can get that antenna in there. Oh, I almost got it. There we go. Let's see, I can get my scissor to just the tiniest hole there. So we're gonna stick that and wiggle it down. I can actually make this a little shorter. If you have scissors, I always use scissors. Have a pair of scissors that's for specifically to cut fabric, and have like everyday house scissors. These ones I've kind of done both, but if you use your scissors for fabric on anything else but fabric, it really dulls them and makes cutting fabric a pain in the butt. So there we go. All right, so we're gonna get this and kind of push this down into my fluff. Wiggle that down in there. Really, here we go. Make sure it's right around where I want. And then I'm going to take some black thread and I'm going to sew the edges. I'm kind of doing a ladder stitch and sewing that together, but I'll show you how to do that in a second. Actually, right now. I'm going to need, I think I'm pretty much done with green. You only need green really for his head. I'll be using black for a lot of everything else. I'm going to take some black because it will blend in with the antenna. And then I might just pause this and then sew that together in the next little section. Oh, here we go. All right, and I'll be right back. I'm going to, and then I'll show you how to sew on the antennas, and then we'll have his head done. All right. Okay, and now we are going to work on sewing the antenna to Zim's head. So I have my string. Oh, I'll pick it up. All set. I've tied the knot off already. I'm going to start from the back. I'm going to go down, put my needle under the green, pull that through to put my knot inside there. Oh, and that just means my knot wasn't big enough. So I'm just going to do another. Yeah, if it pulls through, it just means your knot needs to be a little bit bigger. All right, let's try that. Here we go. Much better. So now I'm going to do kind of what I was doing before with the ladder stitch. I'm going to go from the green and try to get a little bit of this black above where the edge is. And pull it, and then it just hides its seam. You can't even just see the one that I just did. And then I'm just going to go around getting a little bit of the green, pulling that tight, going back for a little bit of the black, pulling it tight, and then kind of just working your way around the head, gripping a little bit, pulling it in there. Bend his antenna out of the way so you can see. And try to get my fingers. It's hard to sew and also look at my phone at the same time to make sure you guys can see. Now, if you want, if you're not quite sure, if it doesn't feel that secure, you can just go around a second time. I think this is pretty good. I might just want to go back and get that little bit right there. Try to make this a little bit more smooth. There we go. And I'll tuck that down in there. There we go. Okay. So now I'm going to go through, I always put my knots where I don't really see them. I'm just going to push this through right to the back. All right, and then this is how I do my knots for this. I'll do 1 stitch. This up so you can see. And again, instead you can kind of see the loop right there. I'll just, oops, I tightened it too much. All right, we'll just go back and do it again. There we go, now you can see it. I'll just go back through. And if I can see, you can very, barely see that. I'm just going to try and hook underneath that loop to make another knot on top of it. I usually try to just do it 3 times if I can hide my knot really well. And once you know that your knot's in there, how to hide your string, because you don't want to cut it and just have a loose little bit. You just push your needle back in and then just have it pop out a close-ish kind of space, but just anywhere inside the plushie. Pull it all the way through and then cut your thread really close to that. And the thread will disappear back inside. You'll have a little tail and you don't even see really where you stopped and started. And so that's his antenna. And I'm going to go ahead and figure out, I'm going to knot this so I don't lose it. This will be enough string, I think, for the second antenna. And then we'll have the head done. So let me just get to that point. Go, find it, here we are. Yeah, and like this one, it's a little too long. So I'm just gonna, again, you should use a different pair of scissors from your fabric. Let's see, right across the head. Just want to make a tiny little hole. You can use a smaller set of scissors, or I just want a little tiny hole because I don't want to cut too much and then have a giant hole I have to deal with. Just something, and you don't want to ruin the fabric. It's another reason why I like to use fleece, because you can put a little hole in something like that and it won't completely unravel your fabric. There we go. Or some fabric, if you cut along the edges of it, it frays and does all kinds of stuff. And I just want to make sure my antennas are about the same length before I finalize. Yeah, that looks good. All right. Oh, look at the hair there. All right. That's a bit, black's a bit fuzzier. I probably should have used the other side of my black so I didn't get like this fuzz. I might trim it. Sometimes you can trim it down afterwards. Yeah, these are not fabric scissors. But all right, let's see, where was this one? All right, so I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to pick up my needle and I'm going to sew the other side, starting underneath to get my knot underneath there, and then just go through like I did before, a little bit above the edge so it kind of pulls the antenna down into his head. I'll bend this one out of the way. Putting a little bit of the pipe cleaner down into the head lets you kind of bend it like that too. Good. Right around here, I'm going to go ahead and do my closing knot. So I'm going to pull through and then kind of go back through that loop before it disappears. And then try to get through that again. And then go back down through, someplace random. Let's pull that through so I don't see the tail. And then, there we go. All right, and we've got little Zim with his little antennas. And then the next one we'll start working on probably the, we'll do the bottom first with the legs. I'll have to figure that out. I can't quite remember, but we'll work on that piece next.